Alright, so I thought, I should catch up on some of the re-signings that Minnesota has done because they've done a few that maybe aren't like, big name kind of things. But we'll start with Britton Colquitt. He averaged 45.2 yards per punt. That was 21st in the league. He had 24 punts inside the 20. That was 19th. But his net average per punt, which is more important than the actual average, was at 42.6%. Not percent. 42.6 net average. My bad. And that was 11th in the league, where the net average is more important just because, well, if you're kicking it 60 yards, but if he's returning it 20, that's a, net of 40. So that would not be good. But, yeah. So he was 11th in net average, which is pretty good. He did have a touchback, so that's nice. His percentage within the 20 was 38.7, so that was 16th. And obviously touchback percentage, he was at 0 because he didn't have any. So the actual contract itself is a 3-year, $9 million deal. It has $5 million in total guarantees and 3.2 guaranteed at signing. So Colquitt is actually very used to getting around $3 million a season. So getting $3 million per season on average at $9 million really doesn't surprise me. So it's the only part that I find a little shocking is Minnesota found a way to do it, and I kind of speculated beforehand that we might having a little bit of a youth movement at the specialist positions like they did last year with the long snapper, where they canned McDermott for cutting, and then obviously they had success of some form because we saw what happened, and then they also changed, and so I thought maybe they would be going more younger, more cheaper, because both Colquitt and Bailey kind of make around $3 million a season per their other contracts. So it was something I was like, maybe not. But obviously they kept both of them. And Bailey we move on to here. It's only fitting to group these two together. He was 0 of 0 for between the 0 and 19. Didn't attempt one. For the 20 to 29 range, he made all 10 kicks. 30 to 39 made all 9. The 40 to 49 range, he went 5 of 7, which is a major improvement from last season. And I remember saying if he could fix that, he's probably fine, and he was fine. From 50 plus, he was 3 of 5. So in total, 27 of 29 for 93.1%, 40 of 44 extra points, and a 90.9 extra point percentage. Now, one of those was kind of on Diggs, if you remember, where it essentially turned into a 45-yard field goal because he took his helmet off. So, probably would have been 41 of 44, but we have that. And his deal is actually a 3-year, $10 million deal. And total guaranteed is $6 million, $4.2 million guaranteed at signing. And this is a $3.15 million average for, the years. So, like I said before, both Dan and Britton are very used to making around $3 million a year. So, once again, the price does not surprise me. However, the Vikings doing it does. And, my only issue with it is I kind of have kicker trust issues. I assume some of you guys do as well. So, it is definitely a risk to go into a multi-year deal with a kicker that you really can't get out of. And because you kind of saw with Blair Walsh, it's kind of one really bad kick away from just it all going down. So this is definitely a risk what they're doing, but Dan Bailey has been historically great for the better part of his career, and he just got back, had a good bounce back year at 91.3%. And it's probably not a coincidence that him and Britton Colquitt are, signed up for the same amount of years. I assume that was on purpose. So you kind of have that same combination going for the next 3 years because they did draft cutting. That's a 4-year deal. Out of year 1, obviously now, so 3 more years left. So we have Colquitt, Cutting, and Bailey all for 3 more years. So hopefully that kind of consistency can carry over. I just kind of am skeptical of kicker contracts just because multi-year, one bad kick, they're kind of fragile in the head sometimes. So that does worry me in case that does happen. If he has one terrible miss like Blair Walsh had, and then you kind of can't get out of it, that kind of worries me a little bit, but I don't think I'm too concerned just because I know who it is. It's not necessarily some young guy that we don't really know that we only had for a year. This is Dan Bailey. He's been in the league since 2011. And just a couple short years ago, he was number 1 in terms of field goal percentage, like all time. So we should probably trust it, if I had to guess, but I'm probably always just going to have my little kicker trust issues. And we're also going to throw CJ Ham in here to talk about him because I did not, just catching up on some things. So he only ran the ball 7 times. He got 17 yards, didn't score a touchdown, did provide 2 first downs, only 2.4 yards per attempt. But in the receiving game, he made an impact there, catching 17 of his 26 targets for 149 yards, 8.8 yards a catch, 6 first downs and a score. His snap counts, I say counts for a reason. He played 354 of the offensive snaps and 232 special team snaps. So, percentage-wise, he played 35% of the offensive snaps and 55% of the special team snaps. So, he ended up signing a 4-year, $12 million deal. There's $5 million in that total guaranteed, $3.9 at signing, and it's a $3 million average. So, the second-round tender, which he probably was a candidate for, they ended up putting it on Eric Wilson instead. That's around $3.2 million, so getting him at $3 million on average a season, obviously that's better because that's cheaper. And I've seen some things on the Twitters and internet, things like that, where they're kind of disappointed that we signed a punter, a kicker, and a fullback first, but we finally had kicking consistency, and the fullback, he did play 35% of the snaps. And just to keep in mind, Olabisi Johnson, who essentially was our second receiver for a better part of around half of the year roughly, he played 597 snaps total, 53% of those coming on the offensive side, where CJ played a total of 586 snaps combined between his special teams and his offensive snaps. So he played nearly as much as Olabisi Johnson did, and obviously made the Pro Bowl as a fullback because he's very crucial to Dalvin Cook in terms of how holes open up. He's a very good blocker, and Dalvin has a good chemistry of reading his blocks, and he's also a core special teamer. So it's not a flashy move here, but it's kind of a more crucial move than some might think because he plays a lot and he's pretty good at what they ask him to do, so they kept him around for $3 million a year for 4 more years. So I view that as a pretty good move. I've seen others get kind of disappointed in it, but we're one of the few teams that uses a fullback. There's not many that do, and he's a good one. So you pay him. How it is. Like to know your guys' comments down below. Like and subscribing. Helpful. And until next time, I bid y'all adieu.